It's 8:12 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Today's date is 12/13/2012. John Boehner will be coming out in about 4 minutes. We will record that and see what Mr. Boehner has done, and then we're going to take a look and see what the reaction is to the Dow and the rest of the indexes. Have they come up with a deal yet, or what is his announcement going to be, or is it just kicking the can down the road? We'll let you know here in a few minutes. Stand by, MMDs.
The president still has not made an offer that meets those two standards, but Republicans have. And while the president promised the American people a balanced approach, his proposals have been anything but. He wants far more in tax hikes than in spending cuts. And instead of beginning to solve our debt problem, he wants new stimulus spending and the ability to raise the debt limit whenever he wants without any cuts or reforms. Now, it's clear the president's just not serious about cutting spending. But spending is the problem. How big a problem? Look at this chart put together by Paul Ryan in the Budget Committee. This line is the current baseline for revenue. Here, if the president got everything he wanted, over $1.4 trillion in taxes, this is what that would represent. But if you look at the spending problem, you see it does nothing to solve the spending problem that our country has. Listen, Republicans want to solve this problem by getting the spending line down. The president wants to pretend that spending isn't the problem. That's why we don't have an agreement. The chart depicts what I've been saying for a long time now. Washington has a spending problem that can't be fixed with tax increases alone. The right answer is to start cutting spending, addressing our debt, and paving the way for long-term economic growth. Unfortunately, the White House is so unserious about cutting spending that it appears willing to slow walk any agreement and walk our economy right up to the fiscal cliff. Doing that puts jobs in our country in danger. Jeopardizes a golden opportunity to make 2013 the year that we enact fundamental tax reform and entitlement reform to begin to solve our country's debt problem and, frankly, revenue problem. As you can see from this chart, real revenue growth is critically important as long as real cuts in spending if we're going to solve our long-term fiscal problem. As I said 5 weeks ago, the election wasn't a mandate to raise taxes on small businesses. It was a mandate for both parties to work together to take on the big challenges that our country is facing. Republicans are ready and eager to do just that. We made a reasonable offer. It's now up to the White House to show us how they're going to cut spending and give us the balanced agreement that the president has talked about for weeks. If the president will step up and show us he's willing to make the spending cuts that are needed, I think we can do some real good in the days ahead. If not, he wants to keep chasing higher spending with higher taxes. This chart's going to look a whole lot worse. And our kids and our grandkids are the ones who are going to suffer because Washington was too short-sighted to fix the problem.
Several recent polls have showed that about 75% of the public believes that the tax rates for the upper income earners should expire. Why are you holding out for a tax cut for the wealthy that most Americans, even many wealthy people, say we shouldn't have?
Raising tax rates will hurt small businesses at a time when we're expecting small businesses to be the engine of job creation in America. Ernst & Young has made it clear that if we were to do what the president's asking for, some 700,000 jobs would be at risk. It's as simple as that.
Mr. Speaker, we've been here late in December the past several years on drilling ANWR, payroll tax, health care, 9/11 health bill, a myriad of issues. Why is it every Christmas season? Why is it we are here this late every single year, no matter what year?
Well, we really shouldn't be. I argued going back to spring that this issue had to be dealt with. That's why in May, the House moved a bill to replace the sequester with other cuts in mandatory spending. why in July the House passed a bill to extend all of the current tax rates. I've been pushing all year for us to address this problem. But here we are at the 11th hour, and the president still isn't serious about dealing with this issue right here. It's this issue, spending. Now, you go back to, and want to talk about polling, most Americans would agree that spending is a much bigger problem than raising taxes. They want us to deal with this in a responsible way.
Again, that's my point. It's not, whatever the issue is, it takes this long each year in December to get these things done.
Unfortunately, that is the case that we're dealing with today.
Did you say categorically that you will not put a bill on the floor to raise the lower brackets at any point this month without the upper income?
I don't quite understand what the question is.
Did you say categorically that you will not decouple the upper rates with the lower rates?
Listen, the law of the land today is that everyone's income taxes are going to go up on January the 1st. I've made it clear that I think that is unacceptable. But until we get this issue resolved, that risk remains.
Speaker, could you describe how difficult it is to craft a deal and that your conference will support while not jeopardizing your job as Speaker?
I'm not concerned about my job as Speaker. What I'm concerned about is doing the right thing for our kids and our grandkids. And if we don't fix this spending problem, their future is going to be rather bleak.
The White House says that they have put spending cuts on the table. They say that you know what they are. Are they just
They've put some spending cuts on the table. Unfortunately, the new stimulus spending they want almost outstrips all of the spending cuts that they've outlined.
Mr. Speaker, there has been talk about a purge list that has been created over in the steering committee, and people have been wanting to know if this list could be released, and so they can know how.
There is no such list.
Mr. Speaker, let me try again with what Jake was asking. Right after the election, you said increasing tax rates was unacceptable. And since then, you've been less definitive in the language you've used. And you say things like you oppose the idea. Well, that's what you said before the election about
I do
taxes
oppose the
in
idea.
general. Right. Will you permit a vote on a bill that, if we go over the cliff, will you permit a vote to decouple that and then fight again on the debt?
Ifs and ands and buts are like candy and nuts. If that were the case, every day would be Christmas. Listen, my goal is to get to... I know, it's going to be here real soon. My goal is to get to an agreement with the President of the United States that addresses this problem.
Do you think that the closer you get to the deadline, you might actually be able to get the spending cuts you want from the president?
I have no idea.
Mr. Speaker, over in the Senate, Leader Reid has made it pretty clear that he agrees with the president about the debt limit, about giving the president the authority to do that unilaterally. If he does that, does that complicate your efforts to enforce the Boehner ruling next year if they're united about?
Do you think that Senator Reid or then Senator Obama would have ever given to President George W. Bush the unlimited ability to raise the debt limit?
They're talking about doing it now.
Oh, God, no, they're talking about doing it now. Do you think there's any chance that Senator Reid or then Senator Obama would have done that? Zero. Congress is never going to give up our ability to control the purse. And the fact is that the debt limit ought to be used to bring fiscal sanity to Washington, D.C.
Last question. Mr. Speaker, last week the Supreme Court agreed to take up litigation challenging the Defensive Marriage Act. As you know, House Republicans have agreed to take up defense of that law. There was a $1.5 million cost cap agreed to take for outside counsel to defend that law. But according to our report from House Democrats, that cost cap has been reached. Do you support the idea of raising that cost cap to pay for outside counsel to defend
If the Justice Department is not going to enforce the law of the land, the Congress will. Thank you.
Mr. John Boehner there seems to be quite frustrated because something has to be done with the spending problem, and therefore that is the same rhetoric that we have. And the broader markets, as far as the Dow goes, was down. We're only down 24 points. We're slightly down on the Nasdaq 100, and the S&P that was up at our target of 1430 has a small reversal as well. Now, it's going to be very volatile because Mr. Bonner there, Boehner there, he wants to do the right thing. And doing the right thing is to make sure that we do not just keep the checkbook open and then we have another $4 or $5 trillion higher in this debt ceiling. So, once again, we're happy to update it. It will go into our archives because one day we'll be doing a documentary on how government negotiates back and forth about what should be done for the American people and how a lot of that should work. And one of the things that we would just like to say that no matter what they do, like I said, if we get a big pop in the market because they do reach an agreement, look at, we've already had a great piece of the rally for Thanksgiving and Christmas already. So basically what we will be doing is we will just tell people that we may have to go over that. We may have to sell down. There's going to have to be some pain in the spending part. And economically, things can be soft for a while. But markets, it will be a stock picker's market. It will be a good year in 2013 at certain periods. Rather, you have to make money on the downside of their failure to reach a deal, so what? You make a lot of money on the downside. When markets get on sale again like they did before and they get deeply oversold, you can get long in certain things that will come back up off of the bottoms, and you can have great trading ranges within the volatility of the United States government.